Magic the Gathering is filled with a whole host of complex interactions and rules that I find make it quite enjoyable. I'm your host, Patrick Marlette, your local game guy, and today we'll be discussing some of our favorite interactions and rules that are helpful, interesting, and or just plain funny. And if you're in the market, order your Wilds of Eldraine using my link below. And while you're down there, you might as well like and subscribe if you enjoy Magic the Gathering content. Big thanks to Wizards for sponsoring this video. The first interesting interaction we'll be discussing is with Necropotence for triple black enchantment, skip your draw step. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. Pay 1 life. Exile the top card of your library face down. Put that card into your hand at the beginning of your next end step. Necropotence fills your hand on end step and has you discard cards to exile to go back to hand size. Except it doesn't. Necropotence has you discard a card, then, once it's in your graveyard, there's a triggered ability to exile said card. That means you can use cards like Shallow Grave or Necromancy to interact with the graveyard before your cards are exiled. This is a really interesting interaction for a few reasons, but the quick TLDR is that Necropotence lets you cheat around your cleanup step. Normally during the end phase, there's the end step and the cleanup step. End step, you get to activate abilities or play instant speed spells. Cleanup step, not so much. Necropotence lets you cheat around all of that. So any effects that might last until end of turn will end here simultaneously with the trigger of Necropotence being placed on the stack. So if you're trying to get around to silence, let's just say, Necropotence is really good at that too. Next we have Green Sun Zenith for X and a green, sorcery speed. Search your library for a green creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Shuffle Green Sun Zenith into its owner's library. Have you ever really read Green Sun Zenith? If you have, you'd know that you don't find a creature and shuffle Green Sun Zenith into your library. You need to search for the creature, shuffle your library, then put Green Sun Zenith into your library, and shuffle again. That's right. As we just read it there, you might have noticed me say the word shuffle twice. Normally, people neglect the second shuffle. However, when is this relevant? Only when Psychic Surgery is on board? So, not never, but never. However, you can always annoy your friends with this fun fact while you begin your second shuffle. Alright, be honest, how many of you actually resolve Green Sun Zenith the proper way by shuffling your library twice? I know personally that me and my playgroup kind of just cheat around this fact, but you are in fact supposed to shuffle twice. No may. You must. Next we have Opposition Agent for 2 generic and a black, 3/2 creature human rogue. Flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. We all know what Opposition Agent does, but do you know what 2 agents do? It turns out that everything for this is decided with timestamps. To put it simply, if 2 opponents control an opposition agent, the last opposition agent is the one that controls the search and exiles the card. Both of these replacement effects are applied on the same layer, so timestamps are involved to see who gets to take their best friend's card. Now, I know this doesn't happen that often, but when it does, note that if you are the last opposition agent on the scene, it's your card. Next we have Sylvan Library for a generic and a green enchantment. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card on top of your library. If you like draw but don't like paying life, do I have an interaction for you? If you use a draw replacement effect like Abundance, you won't draw anything at all. You can't select any cards, and you don't need to pay life or put cards back. Sylvan Library's big hiccup is the fact that you, in most cases, are losing 8 life to get a little bit of value out of your enchantment. It's wholly worth it, don't get me wrong. However, that is a lot for some list to lose. So, the more replacement effects that become available, namely on legendaries that let you cheat around the draw aspect of this card, the better. Next we have everyone's favorite top, Sensei's Divining Top for 1 generic artifact. Pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You can also tap it to draw a card, then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of its owner's library. How many times can I use the word top? Let's find out. People love to use the top to look at the top 3 cards, then use the top to draw. But have you ever thought about how you might use the top on the stack? You can use the top's first effect and use the top's second effect while the first top effect is still on the stack. That way you can draw a card and move the top down a few cards once the top's second effect resolves. This way you don't need to waste a draw to redraw the top. Most OG players know of Top's interesting interactions. It's just one of those combo cards. I myself use it in a ton of combo decks, but what are your favorite interactions with Sensei's Divining Top? Next up we have Urza's Saga, an enchantment land Urza's Saga. It gets a total of 3 lore counters, and at that first stage, Urza's Saga gains tap to gain a colorless. At the second stage, Urza's Saga gains pay 2 tap to create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And lastly, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 0 or 1 and put it onto the battlefield. Then shuffle. Most people think that Sagas trigger during the upkeep, but they don't. They actually trigger during your main phase. That means that you can tap Urza's Saga for mana in response to its final chapter, and keep the mana to use later during the main phase. Heck, you can even make a colorless construct should you like. Just note that all of this pressure is being applied to you during your main phase, so make sure you get the most out of Urza's Saga. Next up we have Flusterstorm for blue, instant speed. Counter target instant or sorcery spell, unless its controller pays 1. Storm. Flusterstorm is a great counterspell, and that's putting it mildly, but what if we made it a combo piece? If you're relying on Magecraft and need some help storming off, cast anything that can be countered into Flusterstorm. You can then have Flusterstorm counter it, and all the Storm copies counter the initial Flusterstorm. This way you can get the procs off of Magecraft cards, and your initial spell won't even be countered. Now, not every color is going to have a competitively viable Magecraft card in their arsenal, but Izzet certainly has one with Flusterstorm and Stormkiln Artist. What are your favorite Flusterstorm plays? I've seen a ton of crazy ones in my time, but I'd love to hear from you guys. And from Throne of Eldraine, we have Wishclaw Talisman for a generic and a black. Wishclaw Talisman enters the battlefield with 3 wish counters on it. Pay 1, tap, remove a wish counter from Wishclaw Talisman. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. An opponent gains control of Wishclaw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. Wishclaw Talisman has become a staple in many a deck. The only downside is that you have to give it to an opponent after using it, except for the fact that you don't. The gift effect on Wishclaw Talisman is part of the resolution, not the cost. That means you can get rid of Wishclaw in response to its activation, and no one gets it. This is one of the reasons why Keskit is somewhat playable. And I am throwing no shade at you Keskit players. Please proceed to partner up with Keskit should you like, but you can break Wishclaw Talisman with anything. My personal favorite, Crook Clan Ironworks. Always a great card. Next up we have the Midnight Clock for 2 generic and a blue artifact. Tap it to add blue. You can pay 2 generic and a blue to put an hour counter on Midnight Clock, and at the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and your graveyard into your library. Then draw 7 cards. Exile Midnight Clock. The clock is a mana rock that somehow keeps sneaking into a bunch of different decks. It is a good way to refill your hand and is just an acceptable mana rock. What people don't think about is that it is also a fantastic tool for looping through your deck. When Midnight Clock gets its 12th counter, you can bounce it to your hand with, say, a Chain of Vapor. That way it won't be exiled and will be shuffled back into your deck from your hand along with the Chain of Vapor that is now in your graveyard. If you have a way to draw your deck, you can repeat this as much as you want for infinite value. I know 3CMC for a mana rock is a little high costed, but one that also operates as an outlet is pretty darn good for your deck. Let me know if you run Midnight Clock in any of your commander decks. Next up we have Demonic Consultation. Maybe you've heard of this one. For a black, instant speed, name a card. Remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game and reveal the next card to all players. If it is the card named, put it into your hand. If not, remove that card from the game and continue revealing the top card of your library and removing it from the game until the named card appears. Everyone knows about Demonic Consultation, but a lot of people use it illegally. Demonic Consultation requires you name a card that is format legal. So any commander players that name Black Lotus are playing the wrong format. Look, Thassa's Oracle is an easy enough win as it is. I'm not gonna let you call out a card that is definitely not in your list, but really, this just falls into that funny category. You can do whatever you want with your playgroup. Lastly, we have Fury Storm for 2 generic and double red, instant speed. When you cast this spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. The dream of all Magecraft decks is to have a fork, copy, or reverberate, copy a fork, copy or reverberate, for all those sweet Magecraft triggers. So how about you do that same thing with one card instead? Fury Storm makes a copy of itself if you've cast your commander. Let's just say Rowan, Sign of War. And you can have the copy of Fury Storm copy the original Fury Storm for infinite Magecraft triggers. Did I just sneak in a new legendary from Wilds of Eldraine that we brewed for recently on the channel that operated brilliantly? Yes. But did we include Fury Storm in said list? No. But I'm starting to think we should have, because that is the perfect list for that card. But what are your favorite interactions that you find helpful, funny, and or interesting to say the least? Let us know in the comment section below. Again, I'm your host, Patrick Marlett, your local game guy, and for more news and reviews on your favorite TCGs, subscribe to LGG, and send this video along to the next gamer with a like. And lastly, thank you again, Wizards, for sponsoring this video.